So today we have Lisa Lounsbury, who I love, and I saw you speak the very first time at Insurtech New York several years ago. I was admiring you in the crowd. I'm very excited to talk with you today with the Big I in New York. And I think what we'll do to kick things off is I'm going to let you do an intro, and then I'll tell the audience who I am, and I'll do an intro, and then we're going to get into a whole bunch of topics around agent and broker and tech and AI and all the things. But let's do some intros first for everybody that's paying attention.
Great. Well, thank Margeaux. Likewise, like I've I've seen you speak, and you're all over
Everybody.
LinkedIn. So I know we've had a lot of fun actually connecting virtually, and we get to meet in person next week, which will be so great. I'm Lisa Lounsbury, and I've grown up in the industry. People have heard my story 1,000 times. My dad was an agent in Pennsylvania. We had he started a small family agency that I started off in high school cleaning on Sundays and helping him and my mom out, and saw that grow. I have some carrier background as well. And then I've been fortunate, I think, to have the best job in the whole wide world, which is working for Big I New York and now Connecticut, because I really just love the industry and think I'm able to help our members because I really get it. My husband's an agent too.
So we have dual, yes, because my husband is as well. And so it's always fun to talk to people who have work with their spouses.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
And we
fun
used to
in
literally
insurance.
work together in a basement
Yeah.
of one office, which was a little tight quarters for a while when we worked for a carrier. But yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, I've been at the Big I for a while now. And again, we're so excited and so proud to be partnering with IRYS and with you and your incredible team. So I know part of why I think you've had such success and such credibility is your background and what you've done, because I think
Yes,
it's so unique. So talk
it
about that for
is.
a
And
second.
we're kind of the same. I didn't grow up on the family side, but it's been a while now. So I feel like I was a kid when I started, and I probably was very less mature than I am now. But I love insurance. Insurance was for me like this giant problem to be solved, right? I really loved it. For everybody who doesn't know, at this point, again, I don't know how. I feel like I've told this story like 1,000 times as well, but I started on the commercial P&C side in an independent agency. And so I really dug in before I even got with personal lines or homeowners or auto. I started with construction. So it was this, immediately out of the gate, it's complicated, it's complex, it's not black and white. There's all this gray area. And so it was never boring. And there was always something to solve or something we could do a little bit better, and really cut my teeth in that area. And then, like a lot of producers and people, you grow a book, and the great thing about insurance is it does give you, financial independence. And so you can spin your book off and be an owner. In our case, we took over ownership from the previous owner. They were ready to go. We bought them out, and my husband and I moved on. And from that point, we really focused on, two main areas of growth, which is the organic growth cycle. Like, how do we make our company grow with the stuff we already have? And then how do we go through merger and acquisition in a really thoughtful way? And so all of that brought me to the operations side. I really loved figuring out how to take a business or a sector of our business and again, solve the problem and do all the operations and figure out how to just get this thing run so smooth and so great, right? With all the tools, and that inevitably led me to software. I think when you talk about operational, excellence, you can't talk about it without the tools you use to get there.
Yep.
And then again, like this winding journey just put me on a whole new path of digging into, and you have to remember this probably 10 years ago. So I dug into what is Insurtech? Like I had no idea. I had never worked in a software company. I was learning everything brand new, like a lot of, I think, agency owners and management are all doing right now. And so really dug in. And again, when I saw Insurtech, I was like, oh, this is a big problem. Like there's so much to solve and to innovate. It's a great space. And so I did that journey, but like you come from an insurance background, and so does my co-founder as well.
Yeah. Did you, I'm
Yeah.
just curious, and I don't think you did, but did you like ever study like computer science or
No.
no?
No. Well, okay,
Yeah.
but in fairness, let's get real. That was not truly through my high school and college career, that was not something that was ever presented to women
Yeah.
as a possibility. It was
Yep.
engineering, computer science. It was very male dominated.
Yep.
I never thought about it as a potential pathway. And it wasn't until later in my life that I was like, I really like this. Like, I really enjoyed the tech side of this.
Yep. Yep. Well, and I think that's, I mean, I don't want to jump ahead, but I think that's been so fun for me to follow with you is what you're building and like what you've done and experimented with, because I really love how you talk about how you've grown from some of the things that didn't work out too, and
Yeah.
how that's made what you're doing now even more meaningful. You come at from like you're trying to attack a problem from the operations side. You
Yeah.
understand the problem, where I feel like insure tech companies, there's some brilliant,
Brilliant
computer
tech minds.
science
Yeah.
data people. They don't understand the problem, and I know, like from my vantage point, I am not a technology person at all. Like this is my Bible. I
They're
get
great.
so
I have
much
one too,
crap,
honestly.
but like I am a Franklin planner girl. Like I was trained on it right out of college. Everybody gives me business about it. That's how I can keep my life organized. But it's interesting because I like my interest in InsurTech isn't really, it's kind of like yours but in a weird way. Like I'm not this technology person that comes into it. I'm representing agents and I understand issues and like everyday, not glorious problems
Yeah.
that the CSRs are facing, that principals, producers, like everyone's got a different issue within the agency operations. And I just stand up to these insurtech companies to try to help educate them on number one, how important agents are to
I
the
mean, that's the
insurance,
first thing, right?
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
We're worth
relationship
innovating
business.
for.
You are the first responders. You are the people that insureds think of, call, text when there's a problem. So to me, it's the really good insurtech companies understand the whole ecosystem. So they
Yeah.
understand how insurance is sold, um, and they solve real problems. Like, don't create a problem. Don't have like.
Or
There's some
you have a
great,
tech that's like kind of could shoehorn in and fix the
yeah,
problem, but then you gotta realign it or configure it a little bit.
yeah,
Yes. I
yeah.
am totally familiar with that
And
process.
it's funny, one of the roles I had at, so I worked for the carrier I worked for. I started in commercial lines also, and I was like the, um, agency operations representative. So we were like
Yeah.
these empowered field underwriters. So we marketed, but we also could underwrite and price and, work with our agents in a really meaningful way. And had this wonderful woman who I still keep in contact with in Pittsburgh. She knows who she is if she's listening. And she worked part-time for what is now Vertifor, and she was kind of like going around. They were very advanced in 1996, 1997, like for an agency. And she said, Lisa, it's the first day I met her, and I remember this vividly. She goes, remember this word, SEMSI. Single entry, multiple company interface. Like, remember
Yep.
this. She said, by the time you retire, it's still not going to be solved. And I was like,
Yep.
oh, haha. Like, what are you talking about? Okay,
Here we are.
here's,
Yeah.
20, 30 years later, it's still not solved. So that's why it's so interesting. Is that even a solution that's needed now? Like, when I look at what you're doing with IRYS, and what's happening with data, and I think a lot of the your positions on the agents having the like do we really need is SEMSI the solution that agents really even need now to be more efficient and serve their customers better? I think technology's
Yeah.
evolved so much. So
It's a lens too, right? Like it depends on in the context which you're asking the
yep.
question. So if you're, and I think this is where all of the insurtechs, in my opinion, I don't think it's a matter of, is the innovation going to happen? I think it's going to happen. I think what we have gotten wrong over the last 15 years is the timing of everything. We thought it was going to be really fast, and it was slow. And I think that there are so many factors as to why that happened. There are external factors, there's market factors and economic factors, right? There's fundraising and can you get an insurtech off the ground, which is a female I talk a lot about, privately within our groups and sometimes within the female founders group, about how just arduous the journey of raising money is.
Yeah.
And if you can't raise the money, it doesn't matter if you have a fantastic idea or a really great tech. If you can't fund it and you don't know how to bring it to market. And there's been so many good software companies that had really good, useful tech. And for one market reason or another, they weren't able to make it to fruition. So you've got that. And then on the other side, you still have, which I think is changing, the risk adverse, like broker agent mindset, which again, I am married to one of them. He is the antithesis of me when it comes to technology. Like, he doesn't care. And I care so much. So it's funny and interesting, but if you look at the average age and demographic of agency ownership, so let's say owners or maybe C-suite, they are typically going to skew older white male, right?
Yep.
And so there was no urgency, or there was no catalyst or defining moment that they needed to have a change. So there was an apathy toward change because it was like, okay, I can implement this thing and it might be 10% better or 20% better, but really there's some risk in it. It's not enough for me to push to make the change. And so there was this like long 10 or 15 years where you were leading up to retirement. You had already built a great business. Why mess with it? Why fix if it's not broken, right? Because in their minds, it wasn't broken. Right. And they were skating to retirement, and that worked for a lot of people. But we're now, I think that you've seen the numbers. I know I've seen them of 60% or something insane like that of the insurance workforce is going to retire in the next 5 years. This is a massive shift.
It's massive shift.
It's
yeah,
huge.
it is.
And people are like, we are not talking about that enough as agents and brokers. We're not.
Right.
We're not discussing that. And when that shift happens, which we're seeing it right now, it's happening right now with merger and acquisition, consolidation of agencies, with the tech plays that are coming into the market. Like, now all of a sudden there is this defining catalyst moment, which is, I'm going to retire. I'm going to hand this over either to a new owner or to my son or daughter, which is happening a lot as well. And they have a very different idea about how they want to run the business and the tools they want to use. And if that inflection point is definitely something when I look in the grand scheme of things and I think about when I wanted to bring IRYS to market, I wanted to bring it to market right now, not 5 years ago, not even 3 years ago. Like, I would choose to do it right now because of that inflection point. And so it's interesting, all of these dynamics that have kind of converged to maybe slow the process.
Yeah. But the timing is key, like you said.
Timing is so key. No, I'm with you. And I've been feeling recently, I think it was the double whammy of COVID, which really rocked some people when they weren't able to get their business up and running virtually. That was a very big sort of kick in the pants. And then this Chat GPT, where now all of a sudden AI is available to the masses, which had never happened before. And now all of a sudden your data matters and everything you're doing matters because you can't utilize that tool without the access.
Yeah. And the third part,
are like huge.
Yeah, I would say, and the third kind of push is the market. Yeah. I mean, this hard market that we've been in is unprecedented. I mean, in New York State's, we're not a Florida or California or Louisiana yet, but we're headed there. But people are worn out. Like, it's, I go out and I love visiting our members. So I'm out in agents' offices a lot. And when I'm talking to the account managers and the CSRs, like, they are beyond stressed. Like, they're stressed. They're like, playing a psychiatrist for their customers who they're delivering these 20, 30% increases to. they're getting yelled at, they feel terrible, they're doing it, and their workload has like quadrupled because
Mhm.
everybody wants to have their account shopped. There's we all know like it's not a good
Yep.
time to necessarily, but their workload has increased so much. So now we're getting a lot of calls from members saying, help, like what can we do to empower our team to be more efficient, like streamlined, so we can better serve our customers and so that my team has more time to talk and not like
Yeah.
be entering information in. And that's why I think some of the timing of what you're doing right now is so great too, because you see a lot of these great insurtech companies that may have been maybe a couple years before their time,
A little
and there's
early.
been a
Yeah.
yeah, too early, or maybe they were great at the fundraising part, but what did they have like their foundation and their business model really established? Did they understand what they were selling, who they were going to
Yeah.
sell it to? And in my world, the number of people are always surprised to learn the number of independent agents across the country is growing. Like,
It's
so
growing. It
yeah,
is.
2022, we were back at 40,000. And what we see on our side in terms of membership, like we get impacted by all the mergers and acquisitions, but um, we see so many new startup
There's
agencies.
scratch agencies coming. Yeah.
Scratch, and they're not all like, we just had two this week. My person who does member engagement, we had two this week reach out to us. They had zero insurance experience. One had a real estate background, and one just like had a
Mhm.
buddy that was doing it, and they want to start an agency. And their first
It's
questions
great
are like,
though.
it's great, but they're saying, which, but your point earlier about mindset, like, what should I do to like, it's not how do I get educated on insurance, what do I need like operations wise and
Yeah.
systems wise? So it is so interesting because you've got all of these generations right now in the business, and we're losing what we're losing with the folks that are retiring is incredible, like just knowledge. I mean, they
Institutional
under
knowledge.
institutional
Yes.
knowledge, they understand insurance inside and out. They may not be great on the tech side. And a lot of the younger folks have just naturally been inclined towards the technology side and just not had, I'm going to say, hadn't had the opportunities maybe to learn the business and like be really great insurance people, if you will. So it's a really interesting time right now. And
Yeah.
I think it's like a boomerang. Like, the insurance education piece is gonna
That's
be
gonna be
just as important.
critical.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I we get asked all the time, and I think we're gonna talk about this when we do the AI panel, is like, what are the best use cases for AI? And I love generative AI for internal, I'm gonna put my hat on,
Yep.
internal insurance training for new insurance reps. And I think it's important too, is that even people that have been in the business 20, 30, 40 years, insurance is so broad and so complex that I have yet to meet anyone that knows all the things about all the lines, about all the right? Like,
Right. Doesn't
and
that person doesn't exist. It's a
and
unicorn if they do. Yeah.
no, well, they might, but they're they're probably
I
insane.
have one in my
Um,
office, so Tim Dodge,
yeah,
if anybody knows him, he's amazing. Yeah.
there's a couple. Lindsay, my co-founder, is pretty dang close,
Yep.
but just in general, that knowledge, and that is exactly what an AI use case should look like. It's we have too much knowledge with too many variables and too much gray area to be able to do something succinctly. So we're gonna let someone interact with an artificial intelligence so that they can do it on a like an as need basis. And I
Yep.
love the idea of transferring this institutional knowledge before it leaves into
Yes.
something like a generative AI so that we never lose that wonderful,
Yep. Yep.
touch point.
I listened to the interview or podcast you did with Chris Klein recently,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you were talking about AI. And what I loved about your position on it, because I think some of our members, and this will tie back to IRYS in a second, like some of our members feel the pressure, like, oh my God, I've got to have these AI tools, and they don't have their processes in place. Like so I think there's some agents feel this undue pressure that they've got to
right.
like get in this race that they have not trained for and they're not ready
Mhm.
for. And I
It's a
loved
dream. Yeah.
your position was like, hold up, like understand really what it is you need. What does your team need? Like be talking to the people and like how can you simplify their life? And it brings me back to when we did a demo of IRYS, I don't know if it's been a month or a couple of weeks ago. And I'm still sitting here saying this, like, I'm going, this looks like I could figure this out. Like,
Yeah.
like this seems so straightforward and intuitive
Intuitive.
that it's not
Yes.
this like monster AMS that I've got to have my notes of procedures to like follow this. It just seems like from a user experience, it would be easy. And like that's for an association, it's really important, I think, that we educate our members on all of the options because
Yeah.
the good and the
Well, yeah,
bad of
IRYS isn't
it.
gonna fit everybody. Like
Right.
there is no such thing as like one thing that's gonna rule, right? Like I think we can all
Yes.
agree that that's probably not even good for anybody
Yes,
ever.
but there's gonna be a great segment, and
Yeah.
I think about the people that may be brand new to the industry where this is gonna be a beautiful thing because it kind of holds their hand and says, "Here, come here, do this, do that." Like, it's just it's easy. You don't have to know all of the lingo, and, like, I'm thinking of I think it was the contacts. There was one in particular, like, it was all of the contacts associated with an account, and I was like, "This makes so much sense." It
Logical.
was
Well,
yeah, it was
yeah,
just
it's
logical.
well, and it makes honestly that we're seeing so we've got a lot of scratch too because there's captives that are coming independent. And I actually talked, I don't know
Yes.
if I talked to Chris about this, but I won't say the words, I won't say the company's name, but there was one that went independent recently, and you had an entire group of people that had been trained on this agent or this carrier's software system, and now all of a sudden overnight, no longer available,
Yeah,
right? And now they're independent, and they're like, oh my God, what do I do? Like,
yeah,
because doing that, but we've seen a lot of, believe it or not, scratch agencies and like that. But the merger and acquisition world has been really good to us recently because of what you just described, which is how do we get the data like in a place that is usable, right? If I'm buying 20 or 30 agencies a month,
yes.
I need to be able to implement something fast. I need to have a very small learning curve, something that's not going to be intrusive to
Yep,
the operation, right? That I just purchased. But I also still need to make sure that their performance metrics are on target and that we're not just like hoping and praying that this investment works out. And
yep,
so that, that ability to quickly adapt and use a software is more than just for new people. It's for ones anybody in that change. And I think that drills right into this institutional knowledge transfer that we're having, because like as an agency owner myself, like nothing was worse than hiring someone. And we wanted to hire new young people and bring them into insurance. They had really great soft skills. We wanted to translate those to hard skills, and you get them in and you like everything is great, and then you put them in front of the screen and for like 9 hours they're typing in to the gray box, and
right.
we would lose them after 90 days,
Yeah, yep,
and for no other reason than that their daily activity was so heavily weighted towards data entry and like long drawn out process that was hard to understand, that they just didn't want to do it. And I
right.
don't know how we're going to survive as an industry if we cannot get, and I'm not saying young people, I want to say we got to go get 18-year-olds, but like people that are mid 30s,
New
like they're
people, just
also
new people, right.
new people in general.
Yeah,
Like how are we going to teach people, how are we going to get them over that learning curve and into insurance so it's not cost prohibitive for us as operators? That's a really big
yes.
deal.
What was your, like, what was your, I don't know, like, the fire that made you say, I need to I need to start IRYS. I need to, like, what was, like, that breaking point? Because I have to assume
There
there was
was
something that, like, threw
there
you
were
over the
two.
edge.
There were two. So and they came over time, right? So the first was when we were an agency in Florida, obviously, and the first one was we had a hurricane coming towards us. So this is pre-COVID. We were
Yep,
all in office. We were on a platform that was not on the cloud. I'll just say that it was it was on our PCs,
yep,
And we had a Category 5 hurricane that was supposed to hit Tampa, and we were evacuated. Our headquarters, everybody who worked for us, we had to leave. And I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like, I understand we have a hurricane, but we're an insurance company. Like, we need to be here the day after, like we're going to have claims coming in. What are we going to do?
Yep.
And I called the provider, and I wanted to do one simple thing. I wanted to get a list of all my active policyholders, and I needed their email address, and I wanted to give them their policy number, the carrier, and the phone number to the carrier's claims department in the event that we were not going to be able to be there to call.
That does not seem unreasonable.
And it's not unreasonable.
No.
Those are my 6 criteria. I got on the phone with the provider. 3 hours later, engineers, everybody basically was like, this is not a report that we can run. And I remember being so pissed about this because, again, I felt it was a very reasonable ask. And again, I don't want to like shame anything. This was over 10 years ago, so that might be available now. But at the time, it wasn't. And so that was, to me, the first catalyst, which was, I'm spending a lot of money here, and I'm now seeing that I might have made a mistake. And then when I moved into the Insurtech consulting side, and I had been in it for a couple of years, I realized that agents and brokers and even carriers and other Insurtechs that we were working with, they all really had the same like 3 things they were asking for at the core of everything. Whether it was a rater or a data migrator, at the end of the day, they were all asking for, I need to see the customer. I need to see the customer. I need to understand what the customer needs and what I need to sell them.
Yep.
I need my data. I need my data. I need that CSV. I need the reporting, not just the analytical output of it, but I need the raw data. I want to run a Zapier integration, or I want to do a whatever, an email campaign. I need access to it. And the third piece, as we've talked about, is I need to be able to train and use this system. Like I can't have a 12-month ramp up for new people coming in. I need to know how to operate the system. I shouldn't have to have a PhD to do it. Right. Or I shouldn't need to be a data analyst to run, because really these platforms were built for their databases that were never meant to have transactional, use cases. But here we are. And so no matter what it was they were asking for, they boiled down to like those 3 things. And Lindsay, my co-founder, and I were working at Giles, which was the consulting firm. And I remember we were in the office and we were having a glass of wine. It was like 7 and we were closing down the day. And we took the marker on the whiteboard and we drew, like, how do we see the customer? We drew a picture of the customer, and then we drew the arm, and we drew another customer. I'm like, how do I see if these 2 people are related? And we made this big like mind map. And I remember us both going like, holy shit, like that's what we have to build. Like, this is what we have to build. And then as a company, I had to go back to the company and say like, hey, I think we should build a product. I know we're professional services and this is great money, but I think that if we don't build this product, it's going to be increasingly harder as consultants to point to a solution that we know is not available. And it was getting harder as a consultant to say, well, chain this thing together and then make an integration here, and then we'll add this piece of software, and then you end up with this like Frankenstein monster. And it was great money as a consultant, but it was harder and harder to like say the words that that's what you needed to do. And I think those were the 2 big points for us that we decided, we had to build it.
Yeah. And the integrations, like we just had a call last week with our technology committee. And I mean, right now the integrations are non-existent, like in a meaningful way. There's just Band-Aids. Like there's just Band-Aids around.
Well, they're fragile because what's happening is you're using external lifts, which is great. Like if you have an AI automation tool, RPA automation, like we need these things to get through the workflow, but there's so many, and having built these integrations, like there's so many touch points, and they're so fragile because systems that were not built to integrate together, even if you can get them to integrate, anything changes on any one of these things. You got 6 systems and they're all talking to each other, and you've got this integration layer on top that's doing all of the hard work, right? Yep. Anytime anything changes or moves in any of your underlying systems, automation is broken, right? Yeah. And now you got to go back. And so it's costly And a lot of times in insurance agencies, even the big ones, don't necessarily have on staff the right skill set to build and manage them. So they're getting pushed off to like the one person in the agency that actually has some technical ability, but that
Yep.
person may not necessarily be the person you want building like massive data migration
Right.
integrations that could potentially be like cybersecurity threats that a lot of times I've seen. And so,
Yep.
we see these sort of daisy chain, but that I think the pendulum is swung, and I think people are really getting tired of that because they're now seeing how costly and fragile, and it's like, I just want this thing to work.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want to fix it again,
Right.
So it's an interesting point of view, though, and I think we're seeing that in the market, that shift of all the integrations. People are just kind of getting like fatigue from it.
Yes. And I think your point too earlier about when you're thinking about the three things that you and Lindsay said you need, just talking about the customer information so you can communicate effectively with them. I mean, with this hard market, one of the big things we keep preaching to our members is like risk mitigation, be that trusted advisor. Well, that means you're talking to your clients throughout the year, you're educating them, like you're an
Mhm.
active partner with them to try to reduce their risk so they don't have a claim. I mean, insurance is just one of the tools, right, in risk management.
Yeah.
So the easier it is for an agency to communicate and really understand their customers and what their unique risks are, and whether it be where they're located or the type of business that they're running, or just personally, they've
What do they do
got
in the
this.
community? Are they on a school board?
Yes.
Like all of these things that's the institutional knowledge, unfortunately, that is leaving, because that person has
Yes.
been at the agency for 30 years. They know the kids, they know where they went to school, they know the cousin down the street, and
Yes.
that is the knowledge that we are missing.
Yeah.
And we have the tools now. We just need to figure out how to get them into the workflow.
Yep. Yep. For sure. For sure.
Awesome. Well, we could definitely talk about this forever.
Yes, we
Um,
could, but yeah.
we could go on
Well,
forever, but it's been a fantastic chatting today, and we're going to be chatting again next week in
yep.
person, and probably many more times over the year
Yeah.
as we partner with Big Eye New York and Connecticut. So thank you so much for obliging me today.
Well, thank you, and thanks for all you and your team are doing. It's really great.
Awesome.